Hello, friends. Jess here. Sorry, I was just doing yoga. And some thoughts came to me that I wanted to discuss. And it's something I think I've touched on before. I've been really going inward a lot the last year. Good, bad, ugly, all of it. As many of you know, probably I got divorced officially, I guess, a year ago, February. But I moved out about a year and a half ago, November. And obviously it's not an easy process. There's a lot to deal with and work through personally with your co-parent and your children. But what I wanted to kind of address is when we face these difficult times, these struggles in our lives, are we facing them or are we numbing them? Do you have the tools available to you? Have you been raised in a way that suppresses your emotions, numbs them, ignores them? Or have you been given tools to be able to process things properly? And the real answer to that is most of us were not raised in a way that honors our emotions and situations and being able to dive into our pain and hurt and difficult struggles and being able to sit with them. So much of how society functions is just get your job, get your coffee in the morning, run to work your day away, come home, watch TV or drink or whatever, and go to bed, rinse and repeat. And living this fast-paced lifestyle is really a mechanism of emotional suppression. And I know that is often what people do when dealing with like breakups. Divorces. In general, it can be a mechanism of dealing with any type of painful struggle, whether it's a loss of any kind. And I guess grief would be the word I would use to define what we're either dealing with, dismissing, ignoring, or suppressing. And it's such a difficult thing for us to truly hold without letting it consume us into a state of depression and like suicidal feelings, like nothing is ever going to get better. But what I wanted to kind of note on my personal experience is I've been kind of open, not totally open, I guess, about having struggles along the way. Like I used to be the person who would just be like, yep, I'm fine. All's good. Not a big deal. I'm fine. And that's it. And not really express the true emotions underneath, because it's like, are we ever fine? Is anyone just fine? I would say overall that answer is no. No one is usually just fine, especially if you have any type of difficult relationship, breakup, loss, whatever it is, motherhood in general. Like none of us are just fine. And that's okay. We're not here to just be fine and pretend that everything's okay. I'll get through it. It's no big deal. Well, maybe, but such a big part of being able to work through things is being able to express the emotions of your situation. And if you're not being able to either do that with yourself, I would say that the hardest practice is being able to sit with yourself not drinking of any kind, no TV, even no music. I'm one who sits with music a lot. Music brings out my emotions a lot more. I express with music, with singing often. And that has been a huge impact on me in the last year, is just being able to sit, and I do it a lot after my work days. I just sit and sing. And with yoga, that's usually my outlet. And I've really made the choice to step away from alcohol, TV mostly. I do have a couple shows I watch here and there when I feel like just sitting down and eating and chilling. Food has been a very difficult one for me, and I'd say women in particular, mothers, we very often lean into food for emotional numbing. So as I say that, just sit and reflect on that yourself and think if you do that. The answer is probably yes. And it's ironic that it's often women that do it, because we are also the ones who primarily struggle with body image issues. And I think a lot of it stems from our lack of emotional control when it comes to our connection to food. It's not even just a part of like seeing images of skinny people that we want to look like. It goes way deeper than that. It's our connection with food. Very often we use it as an excuse for binge eating or junk eating or whatever it may be. And we don't even connect how addictive those behaviors are. So while I've let go of alcohol, I've maybe drank 5 times in the last year-ish. Because that used to be a big numbing technique for me. So I knew I made that intention as I moved out on my own. As I struggled the first few months for sure, being winter in Wisconsin. But I have gotten a hold of it now to where if I feel like having a drink, it's fine. I'm not making sure I'm in the right mindset, that it's not some sort of numbing technique or like just trying to forget the world. Because when we do that, we are not in the present moment. We are not allowing ourselves to face and sit with the emotions of our day and the emotions of what can ultimately be holding us back in life and healing through struggles. And medicines can also be a similar numbing technique. And I know this can be a sensitive subject for a lot of people, but like when it comes to depressions, anxieties, any type of mental illness, it seems like a good decision to use a medication to manage your symptoms, essentially. However, what that's doing is it's just suppressing what is calling to you, meaning your symptoms in any type of manifestation are signs. It's our soul speaking to us. It's the language of our soul speaking to us in how and what we're struggling with. So when we simply take something to make those voices, that language go away, then we're not dealing with what that is. And our emotions, our traumas, get stored in our body in a physical and energetic manner. And those get stuck if we don't allow it. It's energy. It's all energy. And it's a hard thing to kind of grasp if you haven't come into the relationship with the energetic world and how that fits into our body. I urge you to kind of dive into the chakras and the energetic body and the emotional body, and how all that links together with our mind and our traumas, because the traumas literally store in our physical being. And that goes with our emotions as well. Our emotions can get stored in certain areas of our body if we just suppress it and don't want to deal with it at that time. And it usually, the emotional reaction that comes up is often a reaction of some sort of traumatic experience. And trauma is just basically anything that brings an emotional reaction. It doesn't have to be anything serious and extreme. Like me getting out, moving, divorce, whatever. That's a sort of trauma to my emotional system. And I was aware enough of it at the time, not necessarily fully equipped to handle it, but aware enough to where I knew what my path had to be in order to address those things. And motherhood in particular can be such a challenge in itself. So adding a divorce on top of it, handling schedule and stuff with a co-parent, everything that comes with raising your children with another person, and helping your children through the experience as well, is all such a growth experience as well. And I guess the main reason I wanted to make this come live today, is speak to the fact that the more we can become aware of our emotions in general, just identifying when emotions are rising, when you're feeling something, and knowing that that's not going to define you. It isn't you that is the emotion. The emotion is moving through you. So being able to simply sit with that emotion and not let it consume you to where you want to drink or binge eat or smoke. Smoking has been my one thing this year. Or watch TV until midnight and not do anything else. Whatever it is that might be your mechanism. Everything can be an addiction, by the way. Exercise can be an addiction. Doing something that just makes you forget about everything else. And it can be done in a healthy way, but it can also become a very addictive behavior if you're continuing to just put things on the back burner and not face continued emotions that come up. The more we become aware of this, we are able to sit with these emotions, allow them to flow through you, allowing that energy to just rise up, be with it, acknowledge it, and let it go. We don't have to continue to re-traumatize ourselves by going back to the experience, because that can often just be over re-traumatizing. So depending on the situation, that might not always be the best outlet, but it can be going back to the initial time you felt that type of grief or whatever that may be. Everybody's experience with it's going to be different, but that is where I feel yoga and meditation can be such a benefit, because it teaches you to just sit, to simply be in your body with yourself in a quiet space and just feel what rises up. Because in yoga, when we feel certain resistances in the physical body, when you're practicing, that is a signal toward certain stored energies in those areas. So for me, hips and hamstrings are always the resistant areas for me in certain stretches. And I know that there's a lot of trauma held in my root and sacral chakra, which is where that resistance comes from. So noticing your body, what hurts, what organs are affected. This is where the chakras can come in too, where the certain areas of your body will signal to you where traumas are sitting. Like stomach issues are usually solar plexus related. Heart, lungs, heart center. that type of stuff. So I urge you to learn yourself. Learn the energetic system, the meridian lines. That's another part of Eastern medicine. It's big in yin yoga. And it's a similar idea. The chakras and the meridians are a similar concept from different modalities. The chakras come from more of a yogic standpoint, and meridians sit within Eastern medicine and yin, which is more of a Chinese medicine philosophy. So it all comes back into the self-reflection, identifying your behaviors, noticing where you're ignoring, numbing, suppressing, not facing something, and whether it be seeking someone who can simply listen to you and guide you in how to do it yourself, or learning how to do it in your own space. It's sometimes hard to learn it on your own. I think the only reason I was able to kind of teach myself too is coming from the yoga spiritual community. It kind of flowed a little bit more easily into me. It made more sense, the spiritual and energetic aspect of it. You can always reach out to me if you need more guidance in these things as well. I love to help anybody dive into this more. But just see where you're at. Because the more we're able to do these things in ourselves, the more we're able to show up better for the people in our life, especially our children, and be able to kind of create this new generation of awareness and just a self-awareness and practices to be able to cope, and not even just cope. I don't even like the word coping with emotions, because it's not really truly diving in and facing them. Coping is more of like a surface level management where you're not really facing the deeper parts of those emotions. So I rambled a little bit as always, but I felt like this was kind of a message and discussion that needed to get out today as I was reflecting on my own journey the last year, just kind of having been hard on myself of not being where I want to be. Those voices always sneak up in your head of being like, you're not doing enough, you're not making enough. Comparing to where other people are at your age. And it can really start to wear you down until you come back to knowing that your journey is different than everybody else's. The decisions that you've made that bring you to where you are very individual. You've made them for a reason, even if you might not understand it yet. I know I didn't fully understand my reasons for wanting divorce a year ago. Something was walking me that direction, but I didn't fully understand why. And it starts to become more and more clear. Being fully conscious of the decisions you're making too, not doing things out of reactivity. Try not to make big decisions in an emotionally reactive state. Come back and allow yourself to calm and reset before coming back to a situation of making a big decision. I think that's all I got for that, but be very true to yourself. Ultimately, it's easy to compare yourself to other people because that keeps yourself in this loop of low self-esteem and despair and feeling not good enough. You haven't done enough. Why aren't you this successful or able to buy this house or whatever? And the more you focus on other people, the less you're able to focus into your own journey. And you don't know where other people are at. It's easy to look fine. Remember I said in the beginning, it's easy to be just fine on the surface to others. But when you come back into the self at home, when you're quiet in your own solitude, are you fine? Or are you just getting by? Walking the same steps every day without progress, without joy. I mean, happiness isn't really what we're after. Having joy in each day in the present moment. That's where the true abundance and manifestation comes. So, everybody have a beautiful Thursday. Love and gratitude.